Forensic evidence found over the weekend shows that the prop gun was manually triggered on the movie set of Rust back in October of 2021. If you remember, Alec Baldwin, the actor, repeatedly denied pulling the trigger on the movie set where cinematographer Helena Hutchins was shot and killed. On the New Mexico set, Baldwin, who also acted as a producer to the film, also shot director Joel Souza accidentally. Before I bring my guest in to talk about this, I want to show you an animated recreation of the shooting made by the plaintiff's attorney. Let's look at their version of events to get a better idea of what they are talking about. Okay, let's bring in my guest to talk about what we just saw and the Rust shooting. Now, keep in mind that this animation was used and created by the plaintiff's attorney. Dr. Delator, do you think it's helpful to understand or does it help us understand exactly what happened on that day?
Yeah, I think it does. The more visual input that you can give to a jury or whoever, to a judge, whoever you need to give it to, the more visual input that they can see, because no one was there, right? Other than the people that were there, the people adjudicating this, they weren't there. So they need to kind of see how this whole thing would unfold, how one person would be shot and killed, another person shot in the shoulder, right? They need to see these kinds of things. Now, obviously, this isn't going to indicate whether Alec Baldwin actually pulled the trigger. That's more of the forensic evidence that we'll be talking about. But still, it's a good sort of visual indicator of what might happen.
Yeah, and the investigation continues. I do know that the district attorney's office, they're reviewing some of the investigation materials that have been learned or gleaned from the work of investigators leading up to the present date. Do you think that there's going to be any criminal charges stemming from this incident?
I mean, I think so. Although I don't know what you could actually do, because I'm not entirely sure if he was even reckless or negligent. I'm not sure if he's even one of the sort of the bottom of the four prongs that you could have when it comes to mens rea. I'm not sure, but really just it kind of depends on what New Mexico law says.
Yeah, and although we are waiting to see if there is going to be any criminal charges related to this incident, Hutchins' family did file a wrongful death lawsuit back in February of 2021. Let's listen to some of the press conference that followed the filing of that complaint.
Prior to filing this lawsuit, we undertook an investigation. We interviewed witnesses that were at the scene. We interviewed witnesses who the days before could set the stage of what happened. We went to the scene. We assessed the scene with experts. We hired top experts. And we really dug into what we could. We were able to obtain documents from other lawsuits and conducted our investigation. And now we believe, as stated in the complaint, the allegations of the numerous violations of industry standards that occurred by Mr. Baldwin and others that were charged with safety on the set. So what we did with all this work is we put together a video. And the video assesses the facts that the investigation has undertaken, has learned, and it was assessed by experts and other people that were there to what really happened. And you can see the recreation in the video based on the witnesses' statements, the scene, the evidence, and the emails and such they were able to obtain. And I think the video explains why Mr. Baldwin and others were responsible and are responsible for safety on the job site and why their reckless conduct and cost-cutting measures led to the death of Elena Hutchins. Obviously, we hope it'll impact, but look, there are regulations and guidelines in place today that should prevent something like this from happening, but they need to be enforced. And had they been followed, this never would have happened. This is so rare that somebody would be shot on a scene when they're lensing it. There's nothing, there's no supposed to be live ammunition. It never should have happened. Never. Well, I think it's clear what happened. Alec had the gun in his hand. He shot it. Helena was killed. Now, do we have the video? We don't have it all yet, but the gun cannot fire unless the trigger is engaged and the hammer is back. So he had the gun. He says he pulled the hammer back. It fired. She was killed.
She's inconsistent on her answers, but being wrong does not necessarily mean.
You had a little taste of Scott Peterson there, but we're going to get that to that later in the show. But what we saw before was the attorney for Helena Hutchins' family talking about the lawsuit that has been filed, a wrongful death lawsuit, seeking compensation for the family for the negligence that they're alleging was on set. And we know that OSHA conducted an investigation already. They found departures, let's say, from what should have happened on that set. Dr. John, I want to get your take on that investigation and how you think that OSHA's findings are going to play out in the subsequent civil lawsuits. You know that Hutchins' family has filed one. There's other ones also percolating out there. How do you think that's going to play, that OSHA did find that there was some negligence or departures from the standard of care on the set?
Yeah, the civil world is very different than the criminal world, and I think in the civil world, Alec Baldwin, as a producer, right, as the person holding the gun, I do think he's going to face some severe penalties. I think other producers might even be culpable for some of the recklessness, and for sure negligence of going on, of trying to cost cut, right, of trying to just kind of skirt some of the things that, because it's a lower budget, to try to skirt some of the things that absolutely should have been put in place in terms of safety protocols and stuff like that. So I think that Alec Baldwin is probably going to be in a lot of trouble when it comes to the civil case.
Yeah, no, it's a real tragedy that happened during the making of that movie. Do you think it's going to cause the movie industry to really reassess how ammunition and firearms are used on set?
I think it's going to force them to sort of make sure that all productions, whether they're low or mid or high budget, always meet certain safety precautions. Now, the attorney's right when he made his statement about that this very rarely happens, right, that there shouldn't be any live action. But other actors who have been killed on set, they weren't killed by live projectiles. They were killed by other parts of the blanks that were just misfiring. So I do think Hollywood is probably going to look closer at it, making sure that all safety precautions are always put in place, no matter the budget of the film.
Yeah, and we're going to be monitoring that lawsuit, also other legal news related to the Rust set shooting as things play out.